Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Jessie Brandt, Director of Programs and Operations for the Global Wellness Summit and Institute. Welcome to the Blueprints of Wellbeing webinar. Please introduce yourself in the chat and let us know where you're joining us from. Some quick logistics before we get started. Feel free to select speaker or gallery view, and please keep yourself muted when you're not speaking. I will mute everyone shortly. Please turn on your camera if you can. It is now my pleasure to introduce Nancy Davis, our Chief Creative Officer and Executive Director. Nancy, good morning. Over to you.
Good morning, and thank you, Jessie, and welcome to this incredible event. On behalf of all of us at the Global Wellness Institute, I want to say how impressed we are with our co-hosts today, the co-chairs of the Wellness Communities and Real Estate Initiative, Terry Slavik-Suyuki and Jean-François Garneau. They represent the very best in their fields, talented, collaborative, committed, successful thought leaders who run their own businesses and still find time to share their expertise and enthusiasm with the world. And the world listens, as evidenced today with almost 900 people from around the world registered for this webinar. Terry and JF will introduce their very special guests in just a moment. Due to the overwhelming momentum in the wellness, real estate, and communities sector, we're thrilled to create access to resources through a unique collaboration with this initiative. This webinar, which is the first in a series, is designed to help more people identify opportunities in this sector of the wellness economy and realize that the information shared today will be important to the future of your business and investments. Now, you can read Terry and JF's bios, but I like to introduce people by sharing something you won't learn from their bio. For instance, Terry is a published poet, and to clear her mind and ignite her creativity, she rides her road bike and cooks for friends, as she says, not always in that order. It seems cooking is a theme, as JF says, that his love of travel has been primarily motivated by the discovery of art and bringing home recipes, and he's still working on the perfect carbonara. Let me know when you get that. Whether building a perfect sauce or building a structure to stand the test of time, everything starts with a solid foundation. Terry and JF have provided that very foundation for the initiative they lead for the Global Wellness Institute, for the work they do all over the world, and for the effort they have put into today's webinar. It is that strong foundation on which we all stand today. Please welcome the warm, smart, fun, and authentic Terry and JF.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you. We're extremely happy to be here and to see such a great turnout for this webinar leading up to our symposium in May. Let me introduce our panelists for today. I would say our friends almost more than panelists. We have three extremely talented people that will inform the discussion today. I'll start by introducing Louis Lemay. Louis is president and excellence facilitator at Lemay, a multidisciplinary firm of architects, designers, leaders, and change makers, creating meaningful spaces for people and their communities. He has dedicated himself to the creation of architecture that creates value through sustainability and promotes the well-being of its users. With offices across Canada, the US, and the Middle East, the firm's work has been recognized with many national and international awards, notably the Governor General's Medal for Architecture. A leader and mentor in his field, Louis' focus today is turned toward ensuring the carbon neutrality of the built environment, his firm designs, and using his expertise to shape a more equitable, healthy, inclusive, diverse, and just world for future generations. Louis is also a fellow of the Royal Architecture Institute of Canada and a member of the American Institute of Architects. Thank you for being here, Louis. I also introduce Patrick Bosk. Patrick is a deputy managing director of Heinz France, but one of the driving forces behind the existence of Heinz France. He is leading the Heinz team for more than 2 decades. Patrick has led the development of more than 1.2 million square meters of development in the Paris region for that's 12 million square feet. That's a lot, on behalf of investors and their own funds. Patrick has been instrumental in making significant contributions to how the incredible city of Paris looks and feels. He is known in the industry for a man that has no half measures. After over 25 years with Heinz, Patrick has lost none of the enthusiasm which brought him to a career in development in the first place. His fascination remains with his work as a developer in one of the world's most iconic cities, and the fact that the sites he develops and the buildings that make a contribution to the city will be there for generations. To quote him, "What's vital is that we shape and influence not just the building itself, but the lives of those inside and those outside of the building over the long term." Thank you for being here today, Patrick.
Great, and thank you, JF, and Nancy, thank you for that very generous introduction. It's my pleasure to introduce Rachel McCleary, who is coming to us from Washington, D.C. this morning. She is the co-executive director of the Lewis Center for Sustainability and Real Estate at the Urban Land Institute, where she leads the real estate industry in creating places and buildings where people and the environment thrive. She provides strategic direction for the Lewis Center's programs on sustainability, resilience, health, and the built environment. And Rachel has led the Building Healthy Places initiative program for about 10 plus years at ULI. And she has extensive knowledge of land use, environment and sustainability, social equity, and infrastructure policy. As well, she has a master's degree in public administration and urban regional planning from Princeton University. So welcome, Rachel. It's a delight to have the Urban Land Institute and the Global Wellness Institute together today for this very important conversation. Back to you, JF.
Thank you. So, having said good morning and good afternoon to everyone, and welcome to our panel, our panelists today. This panel discussion is on a topic that is not only timely but essential. It's the intersection of health and the built environment. So, along with Terry this morning, it's my privilege to guide us through a conversation that will explore how the spaces that we inhabit, from the buildings we work in to the communities we call home, can be designed and developed to support and enhance our well-being. Today, we stand at a crucial juncture in the way we think about and interact with our physical spaces. The global push towards health for all has never been more pronounced, underscored by the challenges and learnings of recent years. As Winston Churchill used to say, never to let a good crisis go to waste. Our panelists bring a wealth of experience and insight into this dialogue. We have with us a leader from the ULI, a Building Healthy Places initiative, and an architect renowned for their work on wellness certified buildings, and a visionary developer recognized for award-winning healthy buildings and projects in Paris. So over the next hour, we'll delve into the strategies, the challenges, and wins of creating spaces that not only meet our needs, but elevate our health and our quality of life. We'll hear about groundbreaking initiatives, innovative design practice, and the tangible impacts of prioritizing health in the real estate development. Before we turn to our panelists, let's just remember why this conversation matters. The built environment shapes our daily lives. It influences how we move, how we interact, and even how we feel on a daily basis. As professionals and citizens, we have the opportunity and indeed the responsibility to make a contribution to spaces that promote health, equity, and sustainability.
Well said,
So
JF.
Jesse, I don't know if you can allow the share.
You should be able to share. Oh, wait. Here we go. Sorry.
Can you see the screen now?
Yes, it's not full screen, but we can see it.
It's not full screen.
No, but we can see it. If you can make it full screen, that'd be great. And while JF is doing this, what I'll let everybody know is, as JF mentioned, he's in Costa Rica this morning and got word late last night that there would be a planned power outage where he is this morning. So he's coming to us via generator in a hotel with, thankfully, air conditioning and water. So it looks great now, JF, so take it away.
Right. So just before we go into more detail, I love this quote, the future is already here. We're talking about health and wellness in the built environment. So the future is here. People are doing it, but it's just not evenly distributed. What does it matter? 56% of the global population, 4.4 billion people, live in cities. And we now know that 85% of our health outcomes are determined by our built environment. So how do we create impact? Well, through our initiative, which is a think tank, do tank, we look at the built environment and we try to proactively understand and spread the word on how to create well-being in real estate and architecture. For those of you that sort of think maybe, you know, wellness and well-being and development in architecture and real estate is just the physical, you know, and the environmental space, we also think about social well-being, physical well-being, mental well-being, environmental well-being, economic well-being, and civic well-being. So we like to think of it as a mixing board. So all projects will not always be fully developed to every one of these aspects, but hopefully now that we're more aware, we can make a conscious effort to do so. Also, wellness is measurable and it's also immeasurable. And wellness is the new why. And Terry, if you just want to add to that also.
Yeah, wellness has really become the #1 purchase motivator for why people are making decisions in real estate today. Yeah. One of the things I did during the pandemic was founded the American Home Study, which has 10,000 individual consumer responses. And we asked people responding to that study, you know, what were the reasons for choosing certain technologies and sustainability features in their home or building environments to improve their health and wellness was the #1 reason why. And doing consumer research for more than 20 years, that's the first time I've ever seen that rise above saves me money. So I'd really like to think that really wellness now is the new why, and it's more important than ever when we think about the built environment.
We'll get back to the details of our symposium, but for now, just hand it
Thanks,
over
JF. So
to
I'd like to ask
Rachel.
Rachel to step up and share her content and kick us off. And then after each of these brief presentations from our speakers, we've organized today's conversation into 3 areas of impact. The first will be impact and measurement. The second will be speaking about design and development challenges, and then future trends and collaboration, plus leaving time for you all hopefully to have some questions and some discussion with us at the end. So with that, Rachel, over to you.
Thanks, Terry, and thanks, JF. So as Terry mentioned, I'm Rachel McCleary, and I co-lead the Lewis Center for Sustainability and Real Estate at the Urban Land Institute. And I'm delighted to be here to speak with you about our work on healthy places.
Lady, I'm in the middle of something. I've said it now several times. I don't want to be spoken to unless you need to. Okay? Do you understand? Okay.
Jesse.
Everybody, please mute if you are not speaking. We don't want to hear the conversations. It's very distracting. Thank you.
Yeah, so thanks to Terry and JF and the Global Wellness Institute for inviting me to speak on this webinar. And thanks to all of you for being here. Next slide. It's great to have this connectivity between the Global Wellness Institute and ULI. The Urban Land Institute is a research and education nonprofit whose mission is to shape the future of the built environment for transformative impact in communities worldwide. We're powered by our members who form a global network of professionals in every sector of real estate development and land use, from private enterprise to public service. If we have ULI members on the line, I'd love to hear from you in the chat. At ULI, we think broadly about what it takes to build thriving places and communities. Essential elements include a thriving economy, sustainable buildings and infrastructure, healthy people, and attainable housing, all underpinned by effective and accountable government and institutions and supportive policies. And I appreciated JF's overview of the different elements of well-being earlier, which intersect with a lot of these ideas. Next slide. So the ULI Randall Lewis Center for Sustainability and Real Estate, which I co-lead, is focused on many of these key elements. The Lewis Center works to lead the real estate industry in creating buildings and places where people and the environment thrive. We have 3 main programs focused on decarbonization, resilience, and healthy places, and also a substantial cross-cutting body of work. Our main activities include convenings, research and publications, technical assistance, and leadership networks. Next slide. Thinking about the Healthy Places program specifically, we have a broad portfolio focused on green and healthy buildings, leadership and learning, social connection, parks and open spaces, housing and transportation, zoning and public policy, and food and real estate. And all of this is underpinned by a specific foundational focus on racial and social equity and inclusion. We want to help ULI members and partners understand opportunities to promote health and equity in their professional practice and in their leadership in communities. Next slide. So when it comes to some of those specifics, I thought I'd highlight recommendations for real estate professionals from a seminal Healthy Places publication, the Building Healthy Places Toolkit, which you can find online at the highlighted link, and I can also drop it in the chat. The toolkit lays out opportunities for real estate leaders to promote health and well-being in 3 categories: physical activity, healthy food and drinking water, and healthy environment and social well-being. This publication was released in 2015, but its suggestions are just as relevant today as they were then. Next slide. I also want to lift up a terrific program that we host, the ULI Health Leaders Program. This is a year-long opportunity for ULI members to dig deeply into connections between health and the built environment and to make connections that will sustain them for a career. It's open to ULI members from around the globe. If you're not a member yet, you can join after you apply and are accepted to the program. Applications for the next cohort will open next fall. If this might be a fit for you, I encourage you to learn more and to apply then. Next slide. Over the years, ULI has developed many free reports about health and wellness and real estate. I've included just a few of the thumbnails from those reports here. I invite you to check them out. The publications and more are available as free downloads at uli.org/health. Next slide. So thanks for the opportunity to provide a very high-level overview of ULI and the Building Healthy Places program. I look forward to the discussion, and please connect with me anytime at the email addresses on the screen. Thanks. Terry?
Thanks, Rachel. That was awesome. And before I toss it back to JF to facilitate the next conversation with our next 2 panelists, I just want to point out a couple of things that I'd love you all to think about as we continue the conversation. When Rachel shared the framework, she shared the framework not only about physical activity, but also healthy food and drinking water, healthy environment and social well-being. And many of the questions I'm asked all the time when I work with developers who say, I'd like to build a wellness community, is how do I do that? How does the physical environment support those different domains of well-being? And it's critically important that we think about that holistically across the entire panel. So JF, back to you.
Thank you so much, Rachel, and thank you, Terry. Now I'll invite Louis LeMay to give us an overview of his current practice as it relates to sustainability and wellness and well-being, and probably share with us some insights into designing for health and wellness, because he has been responsible for major projects that have been certified well and fit well, and so we can get an inside track. Hence the blueprints of well-being, which was the title of this series. So Louis, hand it to you, or not.
Louis, you're muted.
Oh, okay. I'm in good now.
Perfect.
Yes, yeah. There you go.
So in 1973, there was a worldwide energy crisis, and the impact on the buildings were that all buildings were built around mechanical system with very small tinted windows to save energy as much as possible. That led to buildings with molds and all kind of problems with the air quality, CO2, so people felt dizzy, and there was no daylight, so people fell asleep in the middle of the day. And that was, I would say, the dark area of the building. Next, please. I'm an architect, and my goal is to design for human, not for cars, not for mechanical system, but for the people who want to live and have experience. Next, please. So I think it's very important that the spaces are designed in order to help people to develop themselves and grow, whatever it would be, school, residential, hospital, anything. So I will show you in the next slides two projects that emphasize a little bit of what we believe is the well-being of where architecture should be now, which is balance between the working body, mind in a working environment. So if we can go to the next slide. Yeah, well, that's what we do. We want to build a sustainable solution. So that's office building that we named the Phoenix because it's a third life of the building. So like the Phoenix with a mortal bird that regenerates or born again, that building is still alive. It's a building that is Fitwel. That has been awarded Fitwel Best in Building Awards in 2020. It's also been named Building of the Year by the Canadian Green Building Council and one of the 10 best building in the world by the Green Building Council. And it's the first building in Canada to be awarded Carbon Zero for 5 straight years, and it's LEED Platinum. But what makes that building different are not the awards. Awards is fun, but it's mostly how it was designed around people, about and how it was the balance with how we work, the culture, the mind. So mind is about beauty, art. So it's also art is incorporated to the building, and culture. How we bring culture and a different level to the people who work there. Next, please. So the building is made to have a very interesting way of getting people together indoor and outdoor also. It's a lot of open collaborative spaces, and it's about how we get a better sense of the body by active movement, fitness. It's emphasizes walking and biking, and the air and light quality, and we use this also by actually show that. So next, please. So the building is a net zero energy also, so it uses 20% of a regular building, and the 20% is produced by solar panel. By the way, the building was built under the same budget as a regular office building because the budget was set before construction, before the idea came out about doing a net zero building. So the idea is that if we can create very good buildings at same cost as a normal building, because we take some money from the mechanical systems and we put them in where it makes much difference for the life of the people. Next, please. So active, like a regular building, when you get into an office building, the first thing you see is an elevator. In that building, you don't see the elevator, it's hidden. What you see is the stairs. So you do the 3 levels just walking, and also that's emphasizes the collaboration between everybody working in the building. The building is every room has has access to natural light. It's naturally ventilated, so people can control the ventilation by opening and closing the windows, which is normal because the human body needs stimulus and having an open window brings stimulus. It's a lot better than mechanical system. There's still mechanical system, but also the building is made of such a way that everybody has to interact with each other, even when they don't know. So it's that creates collaboration and innovation. Also, the building was set again with the idea that we should get as much possible close to nature and as far as possible away from mechanical system. So it's very, very small mechanical system, like all the air filtering system are just plants. Like you see, that's a typical floor, but the plants there, they filter the air. So the air is always pure. We monitor all that, and we don't need any mechanical system. And there's a lot of daylights, large windows, and also the natural light is everywhere. And artificial light has been selected to be close to the range of the sunlight, so it's better for the people. And also the idea about windows is that you can get long views, you can see far. The next building I want to talk about is it's a Humanity building. Humanity building is we call it a vertical city. It has residence, offices, restaurant. Was supposed to get a school, have a hotel, and so it's a big community that it's all linked together. And the concept was to create a unique organic place to live, work, train, entertain, and socialize. And wellness environment where exploring the human experiences is the essence of the place. So that building is well certified, was the first in Canada to be certified, and it's a human focused design. So it's all about how humans live, and that's in downtown Montreal. So there was a lot of consideration given to air quality, VOC reduction, filtration of air, creating spaces also where people they walk, they move, like favorizing biking. Also, the water is what kind of the quality of water is monitored. The food also, all the food, organic food, healthy food, no addition. So it's all controlled. Access to light, natural light, all the time. Fitness is part of that, and the mind. And mind is about creating beauty for the people, because you understand that beauty makes people better. And also coming out again with art, bringing art to the people to improve the mind and the culture of everyone. So I think on that covers my topic on this complex project.
Beautiful. Really beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you, Louis. I think it's a tribute to have both a wellness approach and a sustainability approach, and just going like, well, it's a tower in downtown, so you can't do it. So this was very
I'd like to add
innovative.
something if I can. Can I add something?
Yes.
Those two projects, what brings to the real estate is that the Phoenix is fully leased at high rent. Why we are in a situation where office building is complicated now to get rent, and it's fully leased because people want to live and work in buildings like that. Humanity also, it's fully sold, fully leased, and because it has a big traction on people to live there. So that is the benefit for the developer.
That's great. We have a question for the panel discussion later touching that, and I'm sure Patrick will have some thoughts on that. Thank you, Louis. I'll hand it over to Patrick now, who will tell us a little bit about the story of the Stream Building in Paris. And the reason Patrick is here today is that when we talk about the multi-faceted aspects of wellness and well-being, sometimes things are simple. They're also very difficult, but they're also very simple. And when I saw the Stream Building and what Patrick did with that building and a lot of the elements in there, you'll see the continuity in the themes, but it struck us as being a very interesting project to bring into the world of wellness and well-being, again, by being a very urban project in Paris. But I won't steal your thunder, Patrick. I will hand it over to you.
So thank you, Jean-François. Like most of the developers in Paris, the challenge for us is to anticipate the market and to anticipate the user's needs. Because what you have to keep in mind is, for instance, if I start from scratch today, March 24, I will deliver a building 5 or 6 years later, in 2930, after administrative process, after design process, after construction work process. But this building, if I deliver it in 2930, must meet the needs of the users. And not only at the delivery date, but for the leases after the delivery date. That is to say, many years after. That's a real challenge. Otherwise, it's a drama to deliver a building which has been, because it's not well designed, not well anticipated 4 or 5 years before. When I say that, if you want to understand well-being, you have to understand the needs of the new occupiers, the new generation. And the new generation, that's the key of the success. The new generation is not like me. The new generation, they want the quality of life. They want the good location. You see, for instance, why in Paris, when you are in the CBD of Paris, you have rent around 900 euros per square meters with building renovated, but not class AAA, and it's fully leased. And why? At 10 kilometers away, the first ring of Paris, you have building at the half of the rent level, class AAA, and it's more difficult to lease them. Because Paris itself is a service area. What the young people want, what the generation wants, they want to stay in a building, a good one, of course, but they want services. So the challenge, when you want to develop a new building, office building, or even student housing building, is to think a lot on services, well-being at the beginning of the design process. That's very, very important. And one of the challenge for that is, of course, to have a good team, a good partnership with the architects, the engineers. And what I said to the architect when we do the kickoff for each project, you don't have the monopoly of creativity. The creativity is for everybody, architect, engineers. And what we do now is we add in the team, in the conception team, we add startups. Because these young people from startups, they bring new ideas and they bring good ideas. We take it or we don't take it, but it's very important to anticipate the needs of the people. So, and when we are thinking about, I try to be concrete in French. I don't know the name in English, but you have 3 phases when you develop a project.
Same thing.
You have the design phases, you have the construction phases, and you have the management. You see? And of course, when you design, you have to anticipate, of course, the well-being, everything. And I will come back on this later, I think. But you have also to manage the constraints, because often you have an idea, you want to do something, but you have a constraint which is technology, which is often the cost, or maybe a constraint of timing. So that's the reason why the success of a well-being design building is to have a strong solidarity between the investor, the developer, and of course, the technical team. Because sometimes you present to the investor or you present to the developer some ideas which are costly, but that's your choice to say, I do the choice to choose this costly proposal because I want a well-being project. I anticipate the needs of the future. You see? So it's always a question of discussion. That's the reason why one of the key of the success is a good communication between all the protagonists of a project. And for instance, on this slide, you have a stream building. We developed it 2 years ago, but in 2014, we started to think about the well-being in this project. And we delivered this building in 2022, 8 years later. And between the two dates, you had the COVID. So imagine once again, we developed 16,000 square meters in Paris for offices without anticipating the COVID impact on the well-being demand of the users. So that's the reason why it's a success, because it was a good anticipation. And we smelt this change of mind before the COVID. You see? And there's a challenge of all the developers. It's not to be a developer to say, I developed 10, 20,000 office square meters, that's it. No, you have to listen to everybody. You have to anticipate everything in order to be sure that you will deliver the good building. And of course, the well-being building. I try to be short because time is past is short. And you have some pictures of some services, spaces we have developed in different buildings.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Patrick.
And I love the way you frame it, Patrick. And there's conversation in the chat about buildings that didn't think about this from the ground up or, purport to be wellness buildings. But what you've really shown us is that real estate development and creating spaces that support human wellness is a really long game, right? You've got to be thinking 5, 6 years ahead while you're designing things today. It's really critical. It's great examples.
Thank you.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's great. All right, we're going to transition now to the conversation phase, JF, so you can take the slides down for now, if you don't mind.
We'll
bring up our
do.
happy faces. All right, so back to Rachel. The first question in the first section on impact and measurement comes to you, Rachel. So how does the Building Healthy Places initiative and how does ULI really measure the impact of your projects on community health and social equity? How do you do that?
Yeah, thanks, Terry. And those pictures were so inspiring. So ULI, we really work through our members. ULI members are real estate and land use and development professionals, and they are our lovers of impact. So our activities are designed to build member understanding and drive member action to enhance health, resilience, equity, sustainability, in projects and in communities. So we measure things like how much participants learn from our programs, what they think of our programs, if they're going to apply their learnings to their work, and more. And we also track how they're changing our practice, how technical assistance lands in communities, what differences and impacts have happened as a result of our advisory services panels and technical assistance panels and local work in communities. And I'll just lift up one example of an impact that I'm really excited about. So we have a recent report, 10 Principles for Embedding Racial Equity in Real Estate Development, that we released a few years ago. And that report lays out guiding ideas for making racial equity a core part of real estate development practice and projects. And those ideas are already having an impact out there in the world. And one example of that is in New Orleans, the investment team for a major public-private project called the River District is using the principles as an inspiration for that project. And the development team is very diverse. 50% of the project's 900 multifamily residential units are being built as affordable and workforce housing and more. So those are the kinds of on-the-ground impacts that we're very excited about.
That's awesome. That's a great example. And one thing I also want to call out, I think, is that ULI is exceptionally good at what I'll call lessons from the street. So, in spring and fall meetings and even worldwide, there's opportunity to get out in the forum settings and actually walk projects and speak with developers. Probably many of some of you on the call may have been involved, or there may be developers whose projects we've visited, to really get a chance firsthand directly to look at what happened and where the lessons were learned, and where opportunities might lie for the future. So I think that's a really good thing to remember too, that this isn't just all esoteric. And I really encourage everyone to think about walking the streets, walking the projects, entering a building, seeing how it feels. One last question for you, Rachel, before we move on. You shared the essential elements in your framework overview of what you think of at ULI in terms of thriving communities. How does the initiative prioritize focus areas? So like, for example, great list of wonderful things: healthy housing, sustainable transportation, equitable access to parks and food. How do you prioritize, or do you prioritize areas of focus?
Yeah, well, I feel like, our program of work has ebbed and flowed through the years, and we follow to a certain extent member interests. Of course, we respond to the environment that's out there and the policy opportunities and the practice opportunities that we see. But, communities really need to have all of those elements that I showed and that you mentioned in order to be healthy. So we have work streams on all of them, and we aim to help members understand those opportunities to embed all of these ideas into their projects and to foster learning across the ULI member network. So yeah, encourage everybody to check out those resources at uli.org/health. And if there's anything that you would recommend that we dig more deeper into going forward, we're always all ears.
That's great. Thank you. JF, back to you.
That's great. Yeah, maybe a question for Louis. I think you're a trailblazer in WELL certification, FitWell certification in Canada. What would you say are the main challenges of the decision of we're going to go for certification? What are the biggest challenges that you've encountered in integrating the certification and the standards into your firm's designs and into these projects? And you're on mute, by the way.
Okay. All our projects, and I would say almost 100%, incorporate all different concepts that we can bring for well-being, and that will be that for wellness and every project we do. The main challenge is that most of our clients, they just don't want to pay for the certification. So we have designed many projects that could be certified, but they're not, just because clients, they don't see why they should pay for certification since they already have the building doing what it's supposed to do, unless it's for marketing reasons. So it's just that. I mean, I just got that case last week again.
So not the cost of the building, but the cost of the certifying.
No, because the building is not costing more. That's my point I wanted to raise.
That's
because
true.
It's just a displacement of cost, but the overall cost is the same. So it's not about costing more. That's most people say that's not true. When it's done the right way, what you do is you provide better systems, and use other ones. You make them smaller, mostly mechanical system. The system principle is very clear. You use less energy, you use more natural ventilation. Your system should be smaller, and that's it.
That's good. Interesting. Thank you. Just over to Patrick and segue maybe. I'd like your approach of, because I think we're all in that reality of designing or deciding to invest today for something that, depending on approvals and the development cycle, could open in 10 or 12 years from now. I'm curious about your crystal ball, Patrick, of going back, for example, to the Stream building and seeing in the future. So I might know a bit of the answer here, but so does Heinz put a lot of effort into sort of projecting the future and the demographic needs of users, knowing that? How do you do it?
Well, there is no recipe for that, Jean-François. But I mean, I would say it's case by case. The challenge is how to attract the new generation to their office, how to convince them to come back to the office. So you have different ways. You have to work on spaces, the flows, the services, and obviously the technology. I take you an example. It's most on the French office buildings, the stairs are hidden, enclosed. That is to say, if you work on the third floor, if you want to go on the fourth floor, you take the lift. Not because you are a lazy boy or a lazy girl, because it's easier, because you don't see the stairs. What I tried to do for years is to open the stairs. Of course, we have fire constraints to manage. We have a lot of constraints to manage. But if you work again on the design, you find a solution. So believe me, when you have an open stairs, like we did on Stream Building, now, when you work on the 5th floor, you can go on the 4th floor, on the 6th floor, and by taking the stairs, you create communication, you create conviviality. And if you are smart enough, you position the services at the right location vis-à-vis towards the stairs. That is to say, you put a restaurant, you put conviviality space at the bottom of the stairs. That is to say, these stairs become the center of the building, you know? That's very important. That is an example among many others. That's what we did on Stream Building. It's easy to do that because when you design a building with the architect, you have to anticipate this kind of thing. For instance, we bought last week a building, an office building. We want to transform it into student housing. We have an architect for this project. But what I've said to the architect, I will take a concept designer in addition of your role. And he said to me, why? I am the architect, I can do it. I say, yes, you can do it, but the concept designer can do it probably better than you do because he's focused on this, not on the design of the project, but focused on the services. So what I want to say is you have to take the means, you have to pay more fees, you have to pay what you have to pay, but you have to put all your energy in the design of services for offices or for student housing to anticipate, once again, it's very important to anticipate the needs of this young generation. Because today the young generation, Y or Z, is maybe X% of the total workers in a building, but in 10 years, it will be almost 100%.
Thank you. Terry, do you want to follow up?
Very well said. There's a couple questions I'd like to interject if we could at this point. I think it'd be interesting to sort of hear the panel's perspective. So John says that, Louis, he's interested in your statement that, don't the economic values achieved speak for themselves? And that relates to, I think, what Patrick was talking about. And that's the continued fight, right? And I think, Louis, you made the point earlier that it's a trade-off. And sometimes you can do less of one thing and more of another if it's more intentional and focused. But how do you address that question? What do you think? Let's start with you, Louis.
The question about what exactly?
So your statement about how do you get people interested in the economic values achieved? It's hard to address that at the beginning of a project.
Well, it's a change of mindset from people. So when they're not used to do buildings, you have to explain. So there's a lot of explaining, communication, and showing the benefit and having example of what have been done before. It's about communication. Once it's done, then it's getting a lot easier. But it's most of the people are used to do the same thing the same way, and to change their mentality takes a lot of communication and you have to repeat all the time. It's like raising your children.
Right, you're spot on. And I'm working on a project now with a master plan developer. We're at the pre-approval, pre-entitlement stage, and we're in this process of trying to work with the engineer to not do roads the way we've always done roads. So this developer is committed to the idea of a wellness community and wants to make it a wellness community, but we're debating, width of roads and how do we create narrower roads that are safer for pedestrians, that have trees, street line trees that are beautiful to make the environment better. Maybe there's a bike lane, there's a sidewalk that's wide enough to walk a dog, have a child, and walk together. But we're stuck in the pattern of, well, the jurisdictions, the cities, the counties across the country are used to these giant, wide concrete swaths that support cars and not humans. So I do think it's an ongoing problem.
That's a real problem. At first, it should be. It goes by itself. It's the road is smaller, it costs less to build,
There you
costs less
go.
to maintain. That's an easy sell.
That's
But
true.
like you said, most of the time you have to confront the cities that because their bylaws were done in the 50s, where the car was the king of the world, and now we have to change all that. So it takes time. All bylaws were done for cars, not for humans.
It's true. It continues to be a challenge. Rachel, I have a question for you. So ULI aims to impact all buildings, regardless of their characteristic and use type. How do you approach the challenge of applying this wellness thinking approach to diverse projects, and what strategies work best to do that?
Yeah, so I think ULI members are engaged at a variety of scales. And, I think that we are thinking about how we can help our members convince partners and developers about effective strategies that both drive market value and improve outcomes in communities. And I loved the examples that we saw earlier, and I have a couple of slides about additional buildings, if you want to pull them up, that I could share, additional projects
JF,
that
can
would
you
be
go
of
to the
interest
last
if you
coming right up.
slide? Perfect.
Yeah.
Coming right up.
So the first one that I'll lift up is a really special project that's in Denver. It's called ARIA. It's in North Denver. It's an infill community that is designed with a focus on the health of residents and the surrounding neighborhood. It's being developed on a 17.5-acre site. It was formerly home to a convent. And the development has 550 mixed income residences, a production garden, a greenhouse, lots of other features to grow and provide access to fresh produce and food. When it's completed, it'll have a small commercial area, a retail strip, a co-housing development, which I wrote about in a recent article, with 28 residences and healthcare services. So this project shows how health and community well-being can be prioritized in a mixed use project. The next one is an example of the development team really working with communities to figure out how to build a project that meets community needs. The Schuylkill Yards project is a development in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania by Brandywine Real Estate Trust. It's a mixed-use project with 7 million square feet of workspace, lab space, residential and retail space, and over 6 acres of green space. And it will be really transformative for the area. And what is really exciting about this project is that to ensure that the community benefits from the project, the development team entered into a $16.5 million community benefit agreement. And this codifies 5 main initiatives. Lots of cash grants to a fund managed by a consortium of local community groups, an apprentice training program to place local residents in union construction jobs, investment in local sourcing, incentivizing corporate spending on West Philadelphia businesses, and more. So this is a really exciting project that we are watching. And as you mentioned, Terry, real estate development is a long game, and this one is a long-term project.
Great.
Yeah, and the next one, the final one that I'll mention is a hospital in Indianapolis, Indiana. It's a social safety net hospital, which underwent a $91 million redevelopment, which prioritized holistic health and well-being for the patients there, including public open space, a new park, a public plaza, walking paths, a farmer's market, and other programs that are hosted in new spaces. So I think these projects just really illustrate the diversity of a focus on health and wellness and social equity and racial equity and real estate development. And I find them very inspiring.
Yeah, I do too. They're great. And JF, I'd like you to take a question from the chat, and then we'll toss it over to Nancy to kind of start the wrap up. I think at this point, really good conversation. Fascinating.
Sure.
Thank you, Rachel.
Fascinating question from Graham. It says we have a lot of projects that are studying the new standard in wellness, but and maybe this is a question for everyone, is there a register of like-minded investors or investors that are more sensitive to the whole wellness and well-being aspect? Because I know, and Patrick, maybe you could speak to that, there is pushback of how much, if the budget is the same, okay, but there is some pushback to enhancing a building for well-being and wellness. Do you have any thoughts, Patrick, on specialized lenders that have an affinity to wellness projects?
Of course, when we start a project, we have a budget, and the question is how to spend the money, at the right on the right items, I would say, because if you once again, it's a question of design, and you never have the good ideas at the first stage. You have to think, and rethink again with the architects and engineers. And when you have a budget of X, you have to know exactly when you want to spend money on each type of development, on technology, on materials, on architecture, on everything. So it's a important work to do on the design process, because sometimes what it is frustrating, you spend money on technology, on facade, for instance, things like that, and you have to be sure that the occupier will use it correctly. Because if it is not easy for the occupier to use this technology, you spend money for nothing, you see? So that's very important.
Agreed.
So that's the reason why ESG is good, well-being is good, but well-being is good when everybody is good at every stage of the process. You know?
So
Thank
true.
you,
Because
Patrick.
if you design a well-being building and it is very, very difficult to live in, it's stupid.
So true. I think the idea of a registry is a genius idea. I do know there are some Wall Street firms and some other groups like the Man Group in the US that are really committed to that and really investing in wellness real estate only, pretty much exclusively. But I think that's a really excellent idea. Nancy, I'm going to
Harry,
toss it over to you.
Yeah, I'm mindful of time.
Yep.
We have like a bunch of questions still to go, but we're running out of time as is usual. 1 hour into this meeting, we're 2 hours late, as we say, but hand it over to you, Nancy.
If you can pull up that one slide, JF, that'll give Nancy the talking points for what we hope will be something that you will all join us at, either in person, ideally, or if not, virtually. So Nancy, over to you.
Okay, well, that was a fast hour. And it's been a fantastic conversation. If you didn't feel the momentum before for wellness, real estate, and communities, I hope you do now. And to that end, I hope you will join us at the Wellness, Real Estate, and Community Symposium on Tuesday, May 14th, all day, 8:30 to 4:30. I'm hearing a lot of background. If you guys could just please mute if you're not speaking. Okay. The event is both.
Oh, Nancy's muted now. Nancy, you're muted. There we go.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Anyway, the event takes place in person Tuesday, May 14th, 8:30 to 4:30 p.m. at JP Morgan Chase in Midtown Manhattan, and of course, virtually as well. So wherever you are in the world, you can join us. We are pleased to offer attendees of this webinar only a special price. So if you register by this Thursday, March 14th, you'll save an additional $150 off the in-person cost, or $50 off the virtual cost. The QR code is on the screen, and you'll get all of the information in the follow-up notes as well. Thank you so much. I hope to see you on the 14th for what promises to be an incredible day of global presentations, future thinking, valuable networking, and as always, when we convene an event, some surprises and some fun. So back to you, Jessie.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. If you can unmute yourself now, after we muted everyone, please unmute yourself and give our panelists a hand. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll receive a follow-up email, as Nancy mentioned, with the chat. We'll see if we get some answers to questions that you raised, and the recording in video and audio form. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great job.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone.
Thank you. I'm ending the call now.